Welcome to the greats of table tennis. Rong Guotuan was a Chinese table tennis player who carved his name into history when he became the first world champion for the People's Republic of China. In doing so, he set China on its course to become the dominant force within the sport that it is today. His life, however, would end in tragedy. Born in 1937 in British Hong Kong, Rong's family originated from Zhuhai, Guangdong province in mainland China. Details of his early life are not entirely clear, but it does seem that his family maintained contact with the Chinese mainland, and Rong may have spent at least part of his childhood and education time within China. China's economy and politics were unstable in this period, to say the least, and many Chinese families moved to Hong Kong to seek better opportunities. It was within Hong Kong that Rong's table tennis career developed. His father, Rong Guotuan, was a senior figure within the Fishermen's Trade Union in Hong Kong. The union's offices had a table tennis table, and this would become the breeding ground for Rong Guotuan's fledgling table tennis career. Rong Guotuan worked his way up through the table tennis ranks within Hong Kong, and in 1957 he became Hong Kong men's singles champion. As the best player in Hong Kong, you would hope to be selected for the national team. However, Rong Guotuan's name was left off the team list for the 1957 Asian Championships. What was the reason for the snub? Perhaps it was Rong Guotuan's links to the unions and, by implication, communism. By 1957, the Cold War was in full swing, and Britain, as Hong Kong's rulers, had a strong anti-communist stance. Regardless of the reason, Hong Kong's snub was an opportunity for the People's Republic of China. In the first half of the 20th century, China had suffered repeated humiliations by foreign powers. Success in sport had been identified by the new Chinese regime as a way to show the rest of the world that China was once again a force to be reckoned with. Table tennis in particular had been singled out by the communist leadership within China as the right sport for advancing the nation's standing within the world. As a relatively inexpensive sport that could be played indoors in places such as factories and offices by workers, table tennis also fitted with communist ideals as a sport for all. Chairman Mao was also even a player of table tennis himself. Table tennis had been promoted in China by the International Table Tennis Federation's eccentric president, Ivor Montagu, who was himself a committed communist. The ITTF was one of the first international sports organisations to recognise the People's Republic of China. In 1957, Rong Guotuan was approached by the People's Republic of China. He had been asked to move to the mainland and switch his allegiances. Rong Guotuan agreed, and upon arrival, he was given everything he needed in order to focus on table tennis. Senior members of the Communist Party as well took a personal interest in the new asset's development. Rong Guotuan was ambitious as well, and he declared boldly to his new teammates that he would become table tennis world champion within 3 years. The investment in Rong was to pay off. He became Chinese national champion in 1959, and in doing so earned selection to represent China at the World Table Tennis Championships held in Dortmund, West Germany that very same year. In his first World Championships, the 22-year-old would reach the final of the men's singles, where he would meet Ferenc Sido, one of the Hungarian players that dominated the early decades of table tennis as an organised sport. Rong Guotuan's well-disguised serves were too strong, and it meant he emerged victorious, and in doing so, he became China's first world champion, not only in table tennis, but in any sport. Rong Guotuan was now a national hero and was greeted personally by Chairman Mao on his return to China. He became a household name within China and set China on its way to dominate table tennis in the decades to come. Table tennis was now established as the national sport and a source of national pride. China's re-emergence on the global scene was cemented in 1961 when it hosted the next Table Tennis World Championships in Beijing. This was the first major international sporting event to be hosted in the country since the Communist Revolution in 1949. Rong was part of the China men's team that became world champions. However, this was Rong Guotuan's last world championships as a player. By now, other Chinese players had risen to the top of the game. Zhuang Zedong would become men's singles world champion in Beijing and then go on to retain his title in 1963 and 1965. Rong took up a coaching role with the China men's second team after the championships, and then subsequently with the women's national team. He would lead the women's team to its first team world championship title in 1965. Rong's life would take a troubling turn when in 1966 Chairman Mao launched his Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution, on the surface, aimed to root out bourgeois, capitalist and traditional elements within Chinese society that Mao said were undermining Chinese communism. In reality, Chairman Mao was seeking to recenter his own power, and what would follow was bloody and often paranoid violence. Anything and anyone could be targeted if it was deemed counter-revolutionary. The nation's sports stars were not immune. In 1967, the national table tennis team was disbanded, and China was missing from the World Table Tennis Championships held that year. In 1968, Rong Guotuan and two other table tennis players, Fuji Fang and Zhang Yongning, were arrested and accused of spying. They were subjected to torture and public humiliation. The trio's Hong Kong background made them an easy target for Red Guard zealots. Fuji Fan was the coach of the national men's team. The pressure, shame and torture was too much, and Fuji Fan and Zhang Yongning took their own lives in April and May 1968 respectively. In June of the same year, Rong Guotuan would do the same. Details of what exactly happened are not clear, but it's believed he was found hanging from a tree. Rong Guotuan left a suicide note in his pocket. "I am not a spy. Please do not suspect me. I have let you down. I treasure my reputation more than my life." The man who had chosen to come to China when others were leaving for Hong Kong. The man who had re-established national pride and started a table tennis dynasty had been killed by the very regime that had actively sought his incredible skills just a decade earlier. Reading his note is truly heartbreaking. China dominates table tennis today, with multiple generations following in the footsteps of Rong Guotuan. The world owes a lot to Rong Guotuan, so the name should not be forgotten. He was just 30 years old when he died, and he left behind a wife and a daughter. There is absolutely no evidence that Rong Guotuan was a spy, and ultimately he was just another victim of the paranoia of the Cultural Revolution. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more table tennis related content.